In a significant boost for Vice President Kamala Harris, nearly 500 Silicon Valley investors have pledged their support to her presidential campaign.
Kamala Harris rapidly fortifying her own strength amongst wealthy Democrat donors as many open their wallets back up now that President Joe Biden is off the ticket.
2-1 Silicon Valley leaders back Vice President Harris and the Democratic ticket, and that is because of immigration, abortion rights, climate.
As you just heard, Kamala Harris has been receiving overwhelming support from Silicon Valley investors and entrepreneurs. In fact, only a couple of weeks ago, 88 tech giants endorsed her and opened their deep pockets to donate a staggering amount of money to her campaign. Now, we all know how much the Silicon Valley crowd had begun to hate Biden, so I was intrigued by the nonstop support that Kamala has received ever since her nomination became certain. And so I decided to look deep down the rabbit hole into this whole situation, and that's when I came across a name I'd heard before, but I just couldn't remember from where. I'm talking about this guy named John Doerr, who according to this Variety article is the chairman of the venture capital firm Kleiner Perkins. Now for reference, this happens to be the most famous venture capital firm in Silicon Valley and has people like Al Gore and Colin Powell in its ranks. Since I knew this already, I thought John Doerr was just another big shot investor from the West Coast, but after going a little bit deeper into the rabbit hole, I realized I might have found the puppet master who's going to control Kamala Harris and her policies if she ends up winning the election.
Have a look at what I just found on Kamala Harris's Instagram. If you go through the people she follows, you'll find something very, very strange. Pretty much all of them are either actors, celebrities, athletes, or political figures. But then you'll find someone called John Doerr. So I did some digging on John, and you're not going to believe what I found. We know Kamala's flip-flopped on policy, but let me tell you, Big Johnny makes it pretty clear what the agenda is. Besides the traceable donations to the Dems, let me lay out why I think he could be one of the puppet masters behind their agenda. He's on the board of a number of key companies, the first of which is Google, which we now know has been extremely active in censorship, most recently when they stifled the viewership of the attempted Trump assassination and only showed Kamala search results when you'd search for Trump. He was also an early investor in Twitter and very active in the decision-making during Jack Dorsey's ownership.
And you certainly do not have to look very far to see why this man is the big bad wolf of Silicon Valley. He's not just any other investor, but a man who's worth nearly $13 billion and also happens to be an influential board member of some of the biggest tech companies in the world. At Kleiner Perkins, he has been responsible for investments in companies like Netscape, Amazon, and Google. In fact, he is known for personally backing people like Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Campbell. And we already know how these extremely influential companies have been trying to sabotage the Trump campaign.
Social media has given extraordinary power to a group of big tech giants that are working with government, the mainstream media, and a large segment of a political party to silence and suppress the views of the American people.
How can we forget the time when Google was quite literally showing people President Donald Duck instead of Trump? And these hidden tactics are not the only way John has been using his influence against Trump. He is also one of the biggest Democratic donors and has already given more than $800,000 to Biden and is now giving even more to Kamala Harris. But these things aren't the reason why we're talking about it. He is in the spotlight today because he is the co-founder of a very influential lobbying organization called Forward.us. Now, this organization claims to be bipartisan, but it has the backing of liberal-leaning tech CEOs and investors like Mark Zuckerberg and, of course, John Doerr. And if you're wondering what this organization does, well, let's just check out their website and take a look at their goals. Under the immigration banner, they claim, fixing our harmful immigration system will make our country a safer, more prosperous place. We are committed to creating a fair, clear, and modern immigration system that unlocks opportunity for all Americans. That means protecting and improving existing legal immigration avenues, augmenting sensible border security and law enforcement, prioritizing real and serious public safety threats, and providing an earned pathway to citizenship for the 11 million undocumented people living in the U.S. Yes, you heard that right. They are one of those ultra-liberal organizations that are lobbying to give citizenship to all the illegal immigrants who are present in this country.
The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
So basically, they want to give voting rights and Medicare to all the people Joe and Kamala have flown into this country during their tenure. But this isn't the only scary thing about this powerful organization. They already succeeded in passing the controversial 2017 Louisiana Criminal Reforms Bill, which shortened prison sentences, recalculated who was eligible for parole, weakened drug laws, and made it harder to send someone back to prison for violating parole or probation. And here's the president of Forward.us campaigning for this bill.
My name is Todd Schulte. I'm the president of Forward.us, and we are a bipartisan advocacy organization working to fix our immigration system. About a year ago, Forward decided that in addition to our immigration work, we really saw opportunities for big policy changes in the criminal justice space. So Louisiana, a state that had been for a long time not just the highest incarcerating state in the country, but really one of the most incarcerating places on the entire planet. This was a real opportunity to come in and be able to really fundamentally transform the criminal justice system.
Now, I do not have to tell you how much chaos these reforms have caused, because only 7 years later, the lawmakers had to once again toughen up on crime and wash their hands of these reforms to save their communities. And looking at their actions, I don't think anyone in their right mind will call Forward.us a bipartisan organization. Their goals completely differ from the ones introduced by the GOP, and they resemble everything that most liberals have been campaigning for. And even though she's getting financial and soft support from someone who's running such an organization, Kamala Harris keeps on blaming Trump for what's happening at the border.
But Donald Trump believes a border deal would hurt his campaign. So he ordered his allies in Congress to kill the deal. Well, I refuse to play politics with our security. And here is my pledge to you. As president, I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law.
Her claims don't make any sense, but that's intentional. We've already seen how good Kamala is at deflecting the conversation and not giving a straight answer.
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. I grew up a middle-class kid. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people.
You know, we have ambitions and aspirations and dreams.
The ambition, the aspiration, the dream.
I started my career as a prosecutor.
I was a career prosecutor for most of my career.
Having a background as a prosecutor.
I intend to create an opportunity economy.
Developing and creating an opportunity economy.
What I imagine and believe and call an opportunity economy.
And no matter how much she gloats about her career as the Attorney General, the simple truth is that these tech companies love Kamala, because during her time as California Attorney General, Harris did little to stand in the way of Silicon Valley's massive centralization of wealth, preferring to work with companies rather than against them. According to Jamie Court, the president of Consumer Watchdog, it was deeply troubling that as Attorney General, she oversaw the growth of the biggest sector in America that dominates our privacy and our choices, and didn't file a single case to take on that power. So basically, these giant corporations know that their money is safe with Kamala despite her posturing, and they're happy to support her because she's the safest bet for them. Moving on from the scummy politics of Silicon Valley, let's talk about the other female presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton, who is talking about sending Trump supporters to prison for their views.
Boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence. Because
now, anyone who knows about Hillary Clinton would not be surprised by this unhinged opinion, but this is the same opinion that's used by pretty much every other Democrat. For instance, listen to what New York Democrat Paula Collins has to say about the MAGA supporters.
Even if we were to have a resounding blue wave come through, as many of us would like, putting it all back together again after we've gone through this MAGA nightmare and re-educating, basically, which that sounds like a rather a re-education camp. I don't think we really want to call it that. I'm sure we can find another way to.
I would love to know what she means by re-education camps, because that phrase has never been used for something good. And to top it all off, Kamala straight up said that she wants to supervise Twitter because people can say whatever they want there.
He has lost his privileges and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation, and that has to stop.
Well, you might as well create a Chinese-style firewall at this point, because that's the only way to stop people from talking about your blunders. And speaking of blunders, White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre dropped the ball big time when she called Trump a threat only 2 days after someone tried to assassinate him.
President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat that the former president represents to our democracy.
And after a reporter objected, she defended her tasteless choice of words by saying this.
Somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat. How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
Peter, if anything from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question, the question that you're asking. It is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're asking it, because American people are watching. And to say that from an administration who has consistently condemned political violence, from an administration where the president called the former president and was grateful that he was okay, from an administration who has called out January 6th, called out the attack of Paul Pelosi, called out and said we need to lower the temperature after the Butler incident, and now for you to make that kind of comment in your question, because your question involved a comment and a statement. And, it is, that is also incredibly dangerous. When we have been very clear in condemning political violence from here, what I have said about the president, the former president, about January 6th is facts. That you all have reported. It is fact. When you have a former president who basically says that the election wasn't, the results of the election were not the results of the election. When dozens of more than 60 Republican judges said that it was a free and fair election. More than 60 said it was indeed a free and fair election. You had more than 2,000 people who were told to go to the Capitol. It was one of the darkest days of our democracy. One of the darkest days. There were people law enforcement officers who died because of what happened at the Capitol. And they were there because the former president told them to go there. I mean, I don't know if that's not a threat in our democracy when it was one of the darkest days of our democracy, January 6th. One of the darkest days.
So basically, you can call him a threat and make him public enemy number one just because he had objections about the election result. I do not know what she was thinking when she came up with this explanation, but this is what Democrats have been doing. On one hand, they keep condemning these attacks, and on the other hand, they keep telling fanatics that Trump is the greatest threat to America. I really hope someone keeps calling them out on this, because this hateful campaign is setting up a very bad precedent in American politics. That's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the channel. As per usual, I really do appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I hope to catch you on the next one.